Hugh Freeze at Auburn is under some pressure, just not the kind of pressure that some people might think. That's Zac Blackerby, Locked On Auburn, joining me here on the show. There was a take flying around about how Hugh Freeze is going to be on the hottest seat in the SEC or among the hottest seats in 2025. I found that to be a little bit insane just because of a 6-win first campaign. They are recruiting well, trending up, getting a lot of big-time wins on the trail. I don't see Hugh Freeze having a hot seat this year, next year. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think you get fired within a year or two in the SEC unless the future looks grim. And I don't think the future looks grim at Auburn at all. I mean, I think even 2024, this upcoming season, the schedule is actually pretty favorable for Auburn. And then going into 2025, Auburn's in a prime spot to be going into the 2025 season with back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes. So to me, obviously you don't want to go 6-6 again, Spencer, and I don't think Auburn will, but even if you do, you can still point and say, okay, Auburn's going to have a lot more talented roster in the immediate future.
I agree. And I think, let's say that scenario were to come to pass, which neither you nor myself expect. But let's just say you and I are wrong. Not that that's ever happened before. I'm pretty sure every take I've ever given has been correct, and you as well. Let's say they go 6-6.
Especially your takes about Cal.
Yes, they're spot on every single time.
Right.
So I think that if Auburn goes 6-6 this year, there is more pressure going into 2025, but this all stems from a take on, I don't even remember the guy's name. I think you know him better than I do, about
Michael Bratton. He went on a show in Birmingham on Jocks.
Yeah, and it didn't land very well, I don't think, amongst particular fan bases. And I think the reason is that even if he goes at 6-6 again this year, 2025 is a prove it year, but not a prove it or you're fired year, barring a disaster. Everything can always be overcome in this sense if there's a disastrous season, but I just don't see any indication that this year or next year is just going to be a complete train wreck for Auburn.
Yeah, I don't think so. And Spencer, this is one of those weekends in the offseason where you miss football a little bit more than the other ones, just something about it. And so you look up some old games and you watch some things. And I mean, some of the stuff I saw from Auburn last year was atrocious. It was atrocious. And I had kind of forgotten how bad some of the offensive scheme and game planning was. I mean, it was abysmal. And so now you've got Hugh Freeze coming in and he's taking over the offense. And so I think by nature, that's going to be a little bit better. But even if Auburn did go 6-6, I think the messaging from some part of the fan base, they're going to want him gone just because that's irrational. And there's some of that in every fan base throughout college football. That's why we love it so much. But I think a big chunk of the fan base would be, okay, well, it's because Peyton Thorne was your quarterback. And so now Auburn's either going to go into next season with a transfer guy, another transfer guy, or Walker White or Hank Brown. They're recruiting some talented freshmen as well. We'll see if they could land the likes of a Juju Lewis. But you can turn the page and say, okay, this is like the true start of, okay, Hugh Freeze's handpicked quarterback at Auburn. So, I mean, there will be a narrative and a message to push if he does go 6-6, but I just don't see that as likely.
I don't either, and I don't know that 10-2 is necessarily in the cards either for a massive year 2 leap. The schedule, as you mentioned, does work out somewhat favorably, but yeah. Just to put a final point on the Hugh Freeze discussion, if you're looking at him and saying, well, 6-6 is not good enough at Auburn, well, no, not every single year, but you have to factor into account what he was taking over, what situation he was inheriting. But even if you look as you did last year and said, yeah, some of this offensive game planning is atrocious. It's terrible. It's not. Last time I checked, Zach, there was a change at the offensive coordinator position. You contrast that with a Lincoln Riley at USC who got to LA and had success in year 1, but everyone looked around and said, hey, this defensive coordinator is not good enough. This is going to be a problem. And he just kind of kept to it. He just kept him on staff and paid the price for that. I am encouraged by the fact that Hugh Freeze came in and quickly, after just 1 year, after putting his staff together, doing a search and saying, this is the OC I want, saw the results in 1 year and said, nope, that's not good enough, and made a change. I like that from coaching staffs.
Yeah, and he did it with both of the coordinators. And I mean, not to compare everything to Alabama, but that's what Saban did after his first year at Bama. He came in, all right, the coordinators weren't up to what he wanted, and so he made a change. And the coaching staff got better pretty much every year that he was there. And we're going to see if that happens with Hugh Freeze or not. But, the two guys that he has now, Derek Nix, who he got from Ole Miss, this offseason. I think he's going to be really, really exceptional because, Hugh Freeze is the type of coach that really probably arguably overvalues folks that are close to him and he could trust, and the terminology needs to be the same. Of course, every coach wants that. I think Hugh Freeze really, really wants that. I think DJ Durkin on the defensive side of the ball, former head coach, has what it takes to win at the SEC level. We've seen it. So, you got to like what he's done this offseason to kind of eliminate the chance of what happened last year happening again. I think what it's going to come down to this year is just overall talent. And I think how quick can this roster come together? It's a weird combination of a bunch of seniors that they've kind of picked from the portal and a bunch of guys that Hugh Freeze has recruited, which he hasn't been here that long, a year and a half. So it's a bunch of either redshirt freshmen, true sophomores, and true freshmen. So just a lot of young guys and a lot of older guys. We'll see how that roster comes together.
The schedule comes together in a way that I can see Auburn kind of poking their head into the top 25 early, perhaps fading out in the middle, and then set things up. If they win just like one or two marquee games on this schedule, that Iron Bowl could have some gigantic stakes because Alabama could be a 9 or 10 win team by that time and pushing for a playoff spot, and Auburn could be pushing for 9-3 SEC. You'll get a look. I don't think you get in, but you at least get a look and have that conversation. And I think if you can have 8 wins, which is feasible, not easy, but feasible for Auburn going into that Iron Bowl, I think that quiets down any discussion anywhere of, hey, is Hugh Freeze really the guy? Like, that would be, I think, a really, really good mark. And then you never know what happens in the Iron Bowl.
Sure. Yeah. Not so much in Tuscaloosa when Auburn's done crazy stuff. It's happened at home in Jordan-Hare, but it's a new era at Alabama. We'll see what happens. But you're right. CBS's Will Backus, I believe is his name, predicted Auburn to go 8-4 in an article that he did last week. Told he said take the over at FanDuel 7.5 total wins for Auburn because he thinks they're going to go 8-4. Yeah, what you said is interesting about the rankings. Right now, most of the preseason magazines and things that I'm seeing have Auburn at like 30-ish, within a few spots of 30, depending on where you look. And so if Auburn starts 4-0, which the two big ones in that is Cal, your favorite team, and Arkansas, which I think Auburn will be, both those are going to be at Jordan-Hare. Can Auburn be ranked? Can Auburn be a top 25 team when they host Oklahoma in week 5? I don't think it's out of the question. I don't think it's crazy. Then obviously if they beat Oklahoma and they head to Athens with a crisp 5-0, like how high could Auburn realistically be? Because that's going to be a quality win. Then I do think they're going to lose to Georgia. That may knock them out. But those next few games after they play Missouri, they go to Kentucky. They play, they play Vanderbilt. They've got a shot to be ranked again, like you said, before the Iron Bowl. It's kind of an interesting thought.
Oklahoma, at Georgia, at Missouri. I think that's the defining stretch. You can sell me on Missouri or Oklahoma being the most important game on the schedule for Auburn. If you're talking about going over their win total and going over their expectations, winning 8 or 9 games, I think you have to win certainly at least one, because winning at Georgia is just, I'm not going to predict that. I haven't gotten to predictions yet officially, but I'm not going to predict anybody to go into Athens and come out a winner. That just seems like a really, really tall task. But the rest of the schedule, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Louisiana, Monroe, you win at home against Texas A&M, and 9-2 going into the Iron Bowl. I'm not saying I'm predicting it right now, but is it within the realm of a realistic possibility? Absolutely.
I think so. And, a lot of the folks that are kind of downplaying Auburn and just saying, they're going to go 6-6 or 7-5. It's like, that's fine, but show me the 5 losses. Normally,
5. Auburn I don't know if I see 5 losses on this schedule.
I don't either, Spencer. And I don't know if Auburn's going to be leaps and bounds better than they were a year ago. I do think they'll be better. And I think on paper, they're going to be 2 wins better than they were a year ago because I think they're going to win 8 games. But it's just different because what they've normally had to do with playing the SEC West and Georgia every year, they're not having to do that anymore because the SEC, has reshuffled on everything that they're doing and there's no more divisions. Auburn and the rest of the SEC West benefit from that. It's the SEC East or the former SEC East is going to really feel that.
Yeah, Auburn's travel schedule, not brutal this year. 9 games this season played in the state of Alabama, one, of course, down in Tuscaloosa. But I guess the 5 losses would be Oklahoma, Georgia, Missouri, A&M, and Bama. I don't see Auburn going 0-5 there. I think that's worst
case scenario, right?
Yeah, that's Yeah, that would be the 6-6 that we talked about, and neither you nor myself see that one coming.
Possible, but certainly not likely.
I don't see it as likely at all. That's Zac Blackerby, Locked on Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. Zac, appreciate it as always.
Hey, love you a long time.